Good evening, everybody. I'd like to get started. Welcome to today's event, Main Streets and Mental Health, comments from the Main Street, New Jersey study. This is the latest in the College of New Jersey speaker series on the theme of justice entitled Exploring Economic Justice, New Jersey, the Nation, and the World. Before continuing, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge our sponsors. This evening's event has been made possible by the generous support of the School of Humanities and Social Sciences and the New Jersey Council for Humanities. It is a great pleasure to introduce this evening's speaker. Dr. Mindi Fullilove is a professor of clinical psychiatry at the Mailman School of Public Health at Columbia University. She is a board-certified psychiatrist, having received her training at New York Hospital, Westchester Division, and Montefiore Hospital. She has conducted research on AIDS and other epidemics in poor communities, with a special interest in the relationship between the collapse of communities and decline in public health. She has written or co-written a number of books, including Urban Alchemy, Restoring Joy in America's Sorted Out Cities, Collective Consciousness and Its Discontents, Eminent Domain in African Americans, What is the Price of the Commons, Root Shock, How Tearing Up City Neighborhoods Hurts America and What We Can Do About It, The House of Joshua, Meditations on Family and Place, and Homeboy Came to Orange, A Story of People's Power. Her current work focuses on the connection between urban spaces and mental health. Her talk for this evening is entitled Main Streets and Mental Health, Comments from the Main Street, New Jersey study. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Mindi Fullilove.
Hi, everybody. This thing has a pen. It probably works if I try to work it. I just want to learn new technology. It's so cool to have these pens. I want to talk about main streets. And the great thing about talking about main streets with people is everybody has one. Pretty much everybody has one, and you're about to get one. That is so cool. You have your own main street here on campus. In the meantime, this is a little bit of main street. I think I just did something improv. So I was sitting around in 2008, and I was sitting around because I had this disease called hyperparathyroidism. So everybody knows about the thyroid, right? And then there's the parathyroid. So your parathyroids can become overactive.
I'm a nursing student.
There you go. So anyway, one of the strange symptoms of this disease is that you feel dead. Not like suicidal, just like dead, like you already died. You just happen to be sitting there with somebody. Very, very strange symptom. And so I lived in Englewood, New Jersey. This is a kind of psychiatrist doctor story, so just go here. I was living in Englewood, New Jersey, which has a nice main street, Palisades Avenue, view from Bergen County to Englewood. Nursing student. Right. This is my buddy here. Anyway, Palisades Ave is very lively. I was sitting in Starbucks, and I was like, wait, main streets aren't main streets dead? I was dead. I was like, wait, aren't they dead? Like, aren't we all dead? And I was like, it's not dead at all. It's really lively. It's really fun. I come here all the time. It's not dead. So I just got curious about that. Now, I had been doing a lot of work on neighborhoods because I've been studying a ton of epidemics that swept through poor neighborhoods. I studied the AIDS epidemic, the crack epidemic, the violence epidemic, mental illness related to the violence related to crack epidemic, multi-drug resistant tuberculosis epidemic, the obesity epidemic. At which point I said, I better study cities because all these epidemics are happening in the same neighborhoods. There's something going on here. So in Englewood, which my buddy attests to, there's a system of spatial organization that has an axis. So Palisades Ave is the east-west axis. And then there's two north-south streets. And that divides the city into sort of this interstitial matter, and then four quadrants. And the four quadrants are completely separated by race and class. So at least in Palisades Ave, it is a meeting point. It's kind of not quite a neutral territory, but kind of close to a neutral territory. So the sort of like, main streets are not like neighborhoods, which is what I had been studying. They're not like a city. They're sort of a unit of a city. So what are they? Why aren't they dead? And what are they doing? And then, because I'm a psychiatrist, what are they doing for our mental health? Like, why do we need these things? We have so many of these main streets. we keep generating them. Witness town center you're about to have. There's a town center they built in England. Probably the same company. Do they call it Center, C-E-N-T-R-E? So I decided, all over, right? T-O-W-N-E-C-E-N-T-R-E, town center. But they're kind of cute. Anyway, I decided I would study Main Streets, and I was still feeling pretty ill from this hyperparathyroidism, so I didn't want to do anything too energetic. And so I had this study design, which was go to Main Street with a friend and have lunch. This is not a bad study. There's a little bit more challenging part, which was go all the time to the main streets near where I lived. And I happened to move from Englewood to Jersey City and then to West Orange. So I ended up studying plus, you gotta go down the shore in the summer, and I go to work in Washington Heights. So I ended up having to spend a lot of time in those. But I really like the more relaxing ones. Any of you are ever in the West Orange area and you want to catch some lunch, I will buy you lunch to go do this with me. So I've been doing this for years, since 2008. And my goal was to go to 100 cities. These are the 100 cities. It's not quite all the cities, it's over 100 now. And the ones that are in bold, so Asbury Park, Englewood, Jersey City, Orange, and New York City, and I should bold West Orange too, are the ones that I go to all the time. So, and it's kind of random. I didn't sit down and in some sort of exquisite study say, pick a random sample of cities in the United States and go to see their main streets. So somebody said, oh, you come give a lecture in Cleveland. I would go to see, I'll come, but could we go see Main Streets? And I'd say, of course. So can we have lunch? Of course. So that's how I got to all these places. And they are quite different in size and shape and everything. And some cities have a lot of main streets, and some cities have one. In the beginning, I was like, I'll only go to one main street in a city. There's only, Main Street. There has to be a main street. But that turned out to be a stupid idea, so I dropped that idea. And in the beginning, I was only counting the cities that I was going to go to, not the ones I had been to. But that turned out to be a stupid idea. I dropped that idea too. So one of the nice things about qualitative research of this sort is that it can evolve as you understand what's going on. Really splendid thing. A medical student came to work with me from Yale, and by that time I figured out this odd thing that main streets were streets. It took me quite a while to get the street thing. So we did a whole thing around Essex County looking at all the streets. So out of this have come some thoughts about this thing that's part of all of our daily lives, and why it's useful for us, and why it really makes sense, why it's important, why it's adorable. And all of those things help you understand that little space outside of this classroom and the valuable role that it plays in this larger building. It's a little Main Street, oddly. So I just want to stop for a second. So this is Essex County, and the spaghetti, so there's both the outline of the cities and the spaghetti of the roads of Essex County. And you can see that these 22 municipalities they're basically connected by a set of roads that radiate out from Newark, New Jersey. It's a county that grew out from Newark, which was the early settlement, 1666, became an industrial center, and then people went out, sort of in waves. So there's a first wave, and then a second wave, and then a third wave, which is very recent. So Jake Eisenberg and I looked in depth at all of those. So there's these three different sources of understanding about main streets. Looking in depth at all main streets of Essex County, then all of the main streets that I was going to all the time, that was sort of where I lived, which is like a part of my daily life. And I was able to participate in civic conversations about those main streets, etc. And then the ones I kind of casually visited once or twice. So main streets are always touted as being about shopping. And Main Street programs, if you happen to look at Main Street programs, are always about shopping. But the thing that really hit me in the face after all these years was that Main Streets are about we the people. And this is, in a way, perplexing. You know how we always talk about Main Street versus Wall Street? Well, so the question of who is Main Street? And who is Wall Street? And why do we say Main Street? And what do I mean that Main Streets are about we the people? So, part of what you see if you just look at what's going on Main Streets is that we, people, and this includes Wall Street, where we the people is all of us. We need to shop, we need to gossip, maybe we shouldn't because it's not always the best thing to gossip about other people, but we seem to have a need to do that. We need to borrow a book, we need to see people, we need to be seen by people, we need to go to the post office, we need to go to the supermarket, all of these things. And we have, as Main Street has evolved, we put these things on Main Street. Now that's not to say that every Main Street will fit any ideal, but that at the heart of what's going on Main Street is that we like to socialize with other people. Now this socializing doesn't mean that I have to know your name or talk to you. So that this sociability is in essence much more abstract than that. I need to go among other people, people need to go among other people in clumps and have exchanges with those other people. And part of what we're doing in that course of that is making society. So Main Street programs that are just sort of changing the facade, so the shopping will be cuter, are doing something to attract people to Main Street. But really what attracts people to Main Street is people. And it's not what people say in their heads. Oh, I'm going to Main Street because I have this vague need deep in my DNA to see other people. You won't say that to yourself, right? I'm saying it. You say that to yourself? No. But think about it. After a while you start to go stir crazy in your dorm room. And then where do you go? On campuses, people go to student centers. The whole thing about student centers, having a really great student center being a calling card that colleges are putting on the table lately, is because they understand the sociability thing. And if you go to a college that hasn't got a student center, the people go stir crazy because they can't find each other. So the sociability is at the heart of this mental health thing. So I want to talk about a few ways in which Main Streets help us do this. And again, I'm not saying anything that you don't actually know from your own lived experience if you sort of ponder the Main Streets that you put on. Remember, if you completely disagree with me, feel free, I would feel hugely welcome. So I just want to say Main Streets have form. And so there's my buddy. Isn't that gorgeous? So that's Palisades Ave. So there's a hill, and you go down the hill into Englewood, into the shopping center. You go through, and there's a war monument. So when we think of Palisades Avenue as a Main Street, we are thinking of that stretch that's in that photograph, all the way to the war monument. And you can kind of see when you get to the war monument that the street jogs. But of course, in thinking about Palisades Avenue as a street, Palisades Avenue keeps going in both directions. It's not all of Palisades Avenue. So this whole main and street, we have to think about both of those as part of the form. But first I want to talk about this part, and if I knew how to make that thing work. Let me see if I can make it work. If I go like that, oh, check that out. What I want you to see here, I like that drawing. I went to landscape design school, so I'm actually trained. There. Really impressive. What's the form? See the form? So the stores are like walls. And the sky is like a ceiling. The street is like a floor. So there's a box of sorts. And on a really high high-functioning Main Street, the walls are pretty much continuous. One of the things that undermines the functioning of Main Street is when they start putting the buildings back away from the sidewalk and having drive-ins like McDonald's drive-in or the bank drive-in. That completely disrupts it. This box is a fundamental part of what is supporting the sociability of Main Street. When you go to Main Street, you enter the box. People always say, we need to have, or often, you go to town meetings, well, we should have an entranceway for Main Street. Then everybody would know they were on Main Street. I was like, how dumb do you think we are? We know we're on Main Street. How do we know we're on Main Street? First of all, if you haven't created the box, the arch is not going to help. But second of all, if you have created the box, people know if they're in a box or not. So you know if you're in a box or not? Yeah, because you're smart, right? How do you know if you're in a box? You feel it. So, the way in which people want to organize the sociability could change from culture to culture. They might not want a box. Some people like a plaza. Some people like a student center type. It can be anything. It doesn't matter. Because how we're going to move around with each other, that's cultural, but we're going to move around with each other. That's the given. That's what's in our DNA. We like to do that. Think about a caravanserai. I've never said that word out loud. Where going across the Sahara Desert, all the camel trains would stop at these places, and they were gigantic. And they would have all these, like they would have built out all these structures for housing the camels. And everybody would hang out and have a nice time. Drink, play cards, I don't know, whatever you did when you were stopping at the caravanserai. Same thing, right? It's an oasis in the middle of the desert, but we're socializing, hanging out, having fun. Our camels are hanging out. So this box, getting inside the box, is a really crucial thing. Now I have to erase this. Ooh. I have never had one of these things. No, cool college. Right, go on. No. So that's Palisades Ave. Now, America, United States of America, is organized around a structure of inequality, which is driven by two things. One of the things it's driven by is capitalism, and the other thing it's driven by is racism. We put these two things together, I call it American Jim Crow capitalism. That's right. Because we're always, all of capitalism organizes so that the profits can go to the people who own the capital, and the other people work. And if the people who get the profits can get more profits, they like that. And if the people who work can get more profits, they like that. So, constant tension. Jim Crow is how we organize society and divide black people from white people. And this is, everything is organized this way, both about the market and the capital and about the Jim Crow, everything. You can't go anywhere in America, it doesn't matter where you are, without it being part of how the space is organized. Well, it turns out that the spaces that were organized for poor black people are not given resources. And the spaces that are organized for rich white people are given resources. And you can see this in all over America, but you can see it very obviously in main streets. And so this is from Springfield Avenue in Newark, New Jersey, which is one of the poorest cities in the state. And things, if you don't have investment, if you don't have money coming in, things fall apart. So this becomes a serious problem, and part of the reason we have all these epidemics is that we have left some neighborhoods to flounder and haven't given them decent support, and others we've given lots of money. So this is a system that's very bad for health, but it also just looks like that. Now, this building is about to collapse, and buildings on either side are gone, and so there's whole stretches of Springfield Avenue that aren't there. So think about the wall I was telling you about. So that's supposed to be the next part of the wall, and that's supposed to be part of the wall, and this is supposed to be part of the wall. So on Springfield Avenue, there's no wall. And to the extent that the wall is a sign of organizing Main Street behavior, it's gone. So let's think for a minute about how these things that organize behavior. There's some wonderful psychologists who worked on this problem, and they talk about how when we're in a particular thing that we're doing, we behave in particular ways. So if I say to you, we're doing baseball, you would say to me, therefore we have to do what?
Play baseball?
Yeah, if I said we're going to play baseball, you would say, okay, first thing we have to do is what?
Get people to play.
We get people to play. How many people we need? Only 9?
Maybe more.
Maybe more?
2 teams.
2 teams, 9 each, right? So when you're in gym, what's the first thing they do? Or they make 2 captains and then they get to pick, right? And if you're a bad athlete, you never get to say that. All those kinds of minor humiliations in childhood. Now, if I said, okay, I've got my cricket bat, let's play baseball, what would you say? That's not right. And if she says, I got my football, let's play baseball, you would say. So what do you need to play baseball? I'm going to call on some of you guys.
A bat, ball, gloves,
Bases.
bases, the field.
Exactly. How many bases you need?
4.
4. How many gloves you need?
9.
9 would do,
Well,
right?
I will for a team.
Because you have 9 people in the field, right? So, and you could share the gloves. Now, if all of a sudden I said, school, let's play school. Because we're in school. What do we need? What would we got?
Classroom.
A classroom, right? Nice windows, right? Helps you stay awake. If I'm boring, you can watch the lake. Don't they say big windows are better? This is an education building. This is a principal education, not windows. You need, so what else do you need in a classroom? A teacher. And what else do you need? Okay, and how are the students, how is the teacher supposed to behave? And look at this space, like how is this space organized? Because this is like classic classroom.
All eyes on the teacher.
Oh, right, I love it. All eyes on the teacher. That was great. Yes, in classroom you're supposed to have all eyes on the teacher. How many people have kept their eyes on me all through when I've been talking? Not all, right? No, because that never happens. But that's what you're supposed to do. And how do you get trained to do that? You get taught, right? You get taught that when you go into a classroom, you're supposed to be, and how are you sitting? Are you sitting so that you could see her in the back, in the last row? She's like having a drink, listening intently, but you wouldn't know that because you're supposed to have your eyes on me, right? This is a configuration of behavior, and it's culturally scripted that there are a lot of behaviors that go with classroom. And what's cool about graduate school, I mean, I don't know that it's cool, but I'm calling it cool because I teach in graduate school, is that only the people who really are socialized, all eyes on the teacher, are going to go to graduate school. The people who are like, oh, this is just boring me out of my mind, they're not going to go to graduate school. So by the time you get to teach, like Masters of Public Health, where I teach, oh man, you've got some real eyes on me. We're vibing, right? We're in this together. We're doing it. So, Main Street is like classroom. What are you supposed to do on Main Street? Are you supposed to have your eyes on the teacher? No, because your teacher's at school. What do you do on Main Street? What?
Eyes on buildings.
You can have your eyes anywhere you want. You could
Social,
look, right?
socialize.
You could socialize, but you could also socialize just in that sense of like, oh, I'm walking down the street, other people are walking down the street, I'm looking good, they're looking good, maybe I'll go to Starbucks, this is cool, right? Oh man, look at that nail shop. I'd like to get my nails done. Cool. In Orange, New Jersey, they have like the world's largest selection of wigs. So if you happen to want a wig, you could just spend, and shoes, sneakers. So you could really study. What kind of wig do you want to get? What kind of shoes you want? You know what I mean? You can leave looking really good. So that's what you do. That when you see Main Street, that's what you do. But when you see this, what are you going to do? What?
So do you want to leave these?
You absolutely want to leave, and you should, because it's not safe. You should. Really enchantment. I hang out with a lot of architects, and they always have these kind of fancy things. But I'm just a psychiatrist, so I don't. So I'm just telling you, this is cool. I have to get one. One of the, so my buddy, you ready? You know this one?
I know where that is.
Good. All right. One of my favorite main streets is Tenafly, New Jersey.
So my grandpa lives there.
Is what?
My grandpa lives there.
All right, all right. So it's actually kind of fun as a main street because you can go to movies, you can get coffee, they have a bakery, they have a post office, they have a bookstore. You can get a lot of stuff. They have a diner, they have a shopping store, a ShopRite. So it's pretty efficient, pretty good main street. One of the things about Main Street is think of the Main Street as, like, what do they got in a general store? So a general store, you go to Vermont, they have a general store. They have a post office, they have a little coffee counter, they have some stuff you could buy, and, you know, people coming in and out. That's what they have in a general store. A Main Street is just the general store differentiated. You know how in biology we start off as a single-cell organism, the egg and sperm make one cell, and then it becomes you. That's amazing, right? And what do you have? Heart, lungs, eyes, mouth, hair, character. So all that from one cell. Main Street's the same thing. From one cell, they didn't quite go poof. Main Streets don't come up as fast as we do, but anyway, but that's the main thing. So, you know, when you're walking around on the Main Street, I have learned, you want to see what they have. And how many of these things do they have? And then what makes it cute? But what makes, so Tenafly has stuff that's cute. So here is stuff, and here is stuff, and here is stuff. And then there's a little scattering of stuff. Stop and Shop is over there. Do you see that? How cute is that? All right, now, I'm going to use that color. Now, what can you see in this picture that's phenomenal? Parking lots. Oh, that's actually a store. That's a massive parking lot. This is parking lot. This is parking lot. It's, do you know those Western movies? Where, did you ever see a making of a Western movie? Where it looks like a town, but it's really just a stage set, and there's nothing behind it. That's Tenafly, New Jersey. It's like this one really cute strip of stores, but there's nothing behind it. Because a lot of the stores you can enter in the back or, you know, the front. So you go in the front, you know, when you're there, right here along Washington Street, you feel like you're someplace. But when you go into the store and you come out in the front, you're like, wait, there's nothing. And those parking lots are big. Why do they have so many parking lots? Because they thought that what they were supposed to do was fight the malls. And people were going to, Tenafly is a place where you have to drive. So they thought people were going to drive to the malls and not to Main Street, so we have to give them a place to park their car. This is a problem in your campus as well, right? Where do you park your cars? And in fact, you had to give up some parking lots to get a town center. Now that's the better choice. Give up the parking lots, get the town center. To compress the cars, as opposed to give up the town and get the cars. This is a bad choice. Why is it a bad choice? Because remember what I was saying about, so look at this street here. So parking lot on one side, parking lot on the other side. Can that say Main Street to you? It can't. It can't. Now, it's not as threatening as North New Jersey because you feel like in Tenafly, you're in the suburbs. Everybody's driving BMW, everybody's cute. So it's not quite the same. But the capacity to say, yeah, this is where you're supposed to socialize, this is where you're going to meet all those other people, this is a cool place, doesn't have that capacity. So that's a fascinating thing to look for, is there any depth? Does it have a behind? You know how they say, is there a there there? You want to know, is there a behind there? Yeah, but interestingly, it's kind of thin, but what they have is good. So it's very functional for the little they have. Main streets have content. This is the part about the general store. How cute is that, right? Jeannie, who is one of the co-owners of Serrani's Bakery, the historic Italian bakery in Orange, New Jersey, changes her windows every couple of weeks. So it's always seasonal, it's always fresh, it's always interesting. And so this is Jeannie Serrani's Christmas decorations. And if you're ever in Orange, New Jersey, you have to go to Serrani's Bakery and just ask them what they got. Bread is great, cookies are great. It's not fancy, like, it's not, you know, some fancy shishi French bakery. It's kind of Italian home cooking pastry. And what's cool about it is that as the neighborhood has become very multicultural, they have El Salvadorian bread, Ethiopian bread. You just never know what you're going to see. So the last time I was in there, they had pizza rustica, which was the best quiche I ever had. So I take pictures all the time of Jeannie's windows. This is from back in England. I was walking with my granddaughter, we were in the CVS, and she said, look at that. I was like, what? Because you know, teenagers are smarter than you are. And, well, maybe not smarter than you are, but smarter than I am. Obama's on every cover. This is right after the election. So you see, all the Obamas. It's not really every cover, but it's intense, right? Obama, strong and fit. I like this. Into the storm. So, if you think about how we create society, and there you are on Main Street, you decide to buy a magazine, there's a magazine there, and there's covers. And what's on the cover? Now, I just thought about what did I want to buy, as opposed to what was the sort of panoply of magazine covers say. Think about these magazine covers and those bulletin boards. Same thing, right? It's got something to tell you. What's going on? This is what's going on. You just elected a black president. So, I think one of these is like, one of the things that's happening in America, has happened. We live in a market economy. And part of capitalism is that the bigger fish eat the smaller fish. That sounds familiar, right? So they say, I don't know this to be true, but they say that Starbucks goes in when it's going to look for a new location. They look for a successful independent coffee shop, and they set up across the street. And then they drive the little independent coffee shop out of business. Barnes & Noble did the same thing. They would look for a successful independent bookstore, put in their Barnes & Noble chain, drive the other guy out of business, and then take over. Wait, wasn't that a Meg Ryan, Tom Hanks movie? Blocking the name. But it was. So, part of what happens is that the independent store, think of LJ's used books, has a much more homemade, and oftentimes if you're in neighborhoods that haven't seen any investment in 50 years, almost old-timey, like 50, when did LJ paint the sun? It wasn't painted recently. And you know right away it's like an old neighborhood, not much money has gone in there, but LJ's got this little bookstore, he's doing this little thing. When Barnes & Noble comes in, and it's gonna flip from being an independent bookstore to being multinational, the whole style is going to change. And part of what's happened in American culture is that we all, not we all, but maybe we all think that this thing that happens, bringing in these multinationals, is cuter, is better. Part of what happens in the process of gentrification, so when richer people are moving into a neighborhood and the poorer people are getting pushed out, is that the richer people bring new stores and multinationals follow. Or if multinationals are there, it's sort of the Metro PCS phone company gets pushed out and you have AT&T. You get sort of a higher class of multinationals that are considered cuter. And people will say, oh, it's looking so much better. I really like going there. And what are some of the classic signs of this better? Well, as the process is unfurling, before you get like all the top multinationals, one is cupcakes. Cupcakes. Cities and neighborhoods that are gentrifying get a cupcake store. Have you noticed this? I like cupcakes, but they're very expensive cupcakes. Like $5 for a tiny cupcake. And another one that you get is brunch. Okay. Diners don't have brunch. They just have breakfast all day for lunch. But as you're upscaling and the whole thing is changing, as LJ's books is going to get pushed out, and you think you get brunch. I like brunch too. Main streets have signs. Main streets, in a way, are not so much even about what's in the interior, they're about the signs. It's a constant conversation that the society is having with itself. All of us are having this conversation. One of the streets that I love to go down is Newark Avenue in Jersey City, which has several different sections, and they're evolving somewhat separately. One section is Little India, and so for one of the big holidays, this woman was painting this amazing thing in front of her store. This was Valentine's Day in Northampton, Massachusetts. One of the things you learn on Main Street is what holiday is it. Just in case you forgot. What holiday is it? And this is in Boulogne-Billancourt, just outside of Paris, in Marché. Isn't that a beautiful sign? Marché. So Paris is in the area, other French cities are losing these like medium-sized supermarkets, which are so important to neighborhoods, and they're trying very hard to keep them. But this was a neighborhood that had one. And this is absolutely my favorite of all the signs I've seen on all the main streets in all the cities. Steaks, fries, and burgers. It's not there anymore. My friend David Chapin, who's an architect who's been helping me, he goes to lunch with me, made a t-shirt. He's helping me write my book, and we're going to have a t-shirt line. This will be one of the t-shirts that you can buy on our website. Anyway, in the background you see the new Journal Square. That's because this old sign, Stars, Steaks, Fries, and Burgers, is going to be replaced. And this is the area where the new storage facility / art spaces, Mana Storage, which has all this art on display. So people who want to store their art can store their art there, but it gets also exhibited. That's a huge leap from Stars, Steaks, Fries, and Burgers. Do you see the difference? How it's going to change? And the change is not simply like a different sign, it's a different way of life. So this is about when Jersey City was a center of American industry, but the new thing is about the new thing that Jersey City is becoming. New industries, finance, insurance, real estate, and poor, unskilled workers being pushed. So I've been going to Main Street now since 2008. So it's been a good amount of time to see all these things play out, to see what's happening on Palisades Avenue. Palisades Avenue used to be split in the middle, so it was white on one side and black on the other side. And my famous granddaughter said to me once, people don't go to the other side, which was Starbucks. Now what did this mean? So she's black. So what she meant was, she and her friends didn't go there. They were all black and Latin. And they stayed on the black and Latin side. So they like to get empanadas, get nail polish. They didn't go over by the Starbucks or the fancy white stores. And what people mean by people is their kind of people. So she would say people mean black people. Black people don't go over there because it's the white side. If white people say people, they mean white people. And this is something linguists talk about marking language, that we mark to say the lower down group. So black people are, in her mind, the higher group. So people don't go over there. But what's happened is that the white people are buying the whole thing. So pretty sure people aren't going to live there, they're not going to go there. I pretty much find that signs like you have out here, I mean, I adore these signs. They're so interesting. Everybody has different things that are up for grabs. But that this is much more about middle and upper class life. That you just kind of basically don't find such bulletin board in a poor neighborhood. I don't really know what that's about, but it just doesn't happen. But if you look at the signs, they're always very interesting. Pilates, there's always a poetry group, the Tempest. Like, who are these people? Right? If you read the signs, you know exactly who they are. Who takes Pilates and goes to see the Tempest? Middle-aged what?
Middle-aged women.
Yes. That would be you and James. Now, the thing that surprised me most about all of this, and that was hardest to perceive in my little study design, going to lunch on these 100 Main Streets, was that Main Streets have soul. And so that's something that I think you know, that you feel, all of you, that we all feel deeply. It's not, and that's where it's really not about shopping. Like, it's not about the facade, it's not about what's inside the stores, it's not about, do I get a Valentine's card at the Shishi store in Northampton, or, you know, steak, fries, and burgers over by Stars. It's not about that. It's about this other thing that's going on, which is that we need each other. And Main Streets is a place where we cross paths, we look at each other in the Main Street way. We have these constant conversations via these signs, and by our coming and going, by our posture, by the amount of time we spend, these passages are a carefully orchestrated dance. And so the part of this is that you have to look at the quiet things people do. Here's a woman writing a poem to Duarte Square. And this is like the woman who was painting the sign on Newark Avenue in New Jersey City. Intensely involved in putting a message with chalk. The soul part is quite ephemeral. It passes quickly. So you have to be watching for it, and you have to, in a way, have your heart open. What is going on in that moment? And what is it telling us about the place, the person, about us, all of us? This is Montclair, New Jersey, been here, on Church Street. Like, wow. I mean, that's not just, yeah, I want to sell you a pumpkin, right? Because they could have made a sign, pumpkins inside. They have made a garden, a pop-up Halloween garden on Church Street. I really did go to landscape design school at the New York Botanical Garden, and I got a certificate in landscape design. And one of the things that I learned was that gardens, we sort of think of a garden as lettuce or roses, but a garden is really space that's organized to please us. And so all of these pumpkins and Halloween things, so the scarecrow, look at all these Halloween things, the scarecrow and these pumpkins and this pathway. Instead of a sidewalk, a regular old sidewalk, they've made this curved pathway. They have delighted us by this moment of difference. They've shifted the voice of Main Street. Just for a second. You know, you walk down there, how many seconds does it take to walk through that? 10 seconds. And how long is it going to be there? Very short amount of time. Like Jeannie's window, very short amount of time. But we get to go through there. They did that for us. That's soul. And why is that important? Because one of the ways in which we organize life, think of life as a clothesline, is that we hang things by the holidays. It's what I like to call the ritual calendar. So Valentine's Day and St. Patrick's Day and May Day and 4th of July and Labor Day and Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas, or whatever set of holidays you celebrate, come every year. And if you think of them as like a checkerboard, if you think back on every Halloween of your life, and I said, when you were 5 years old, what was your costume? I was like, we're going to say, I don't know. But you know that when you were 5, you had a costume you went trick-or-treating, right? And probably some of your great costumes, does everybody, not everybody celebrates Halloween, but for those of you who have celebrated Halloween, do you have like your greatest costume? Like your greatest achievement, like in the back, yeah, what's your greatest achievement?
I don't know, princess.
There you go, that's a high art, right? Yeah. Our greatest achievement, like the greatest achievement of a Halloween costume?
My sister and brother and I went as a silo, a cow, and a farmer.
Awesome. I once had the idea that I thought it was absolutely fabulous to be an advertising robot. So I took a lot of boxes and I wrote ads over them. It was very uncomfortable. I was really proud of it. The point is that as we hit Halloween, it's not just this Halloween, it's all of our Halloweens. And so we have the year organized in this way. There are periods. And these holidays are all timed to the sun. So they're all about the equinox and the solstice and those other periods that come between those. So they're all about helping us be in tune with these larger things that are going on in the whole galaxy. Right? Like the sun is out there, and sometimes we're nearer, and sometimes we're further. Sometimes the days are short, sometimes the days are long. We don't have to think about that because the holidays are going to tell us. When it's Christmas, we put on a lot of lights, and why? Because it's the winter solstice and it's the shortest days of the year, right? Jeannie in the window put lights for Christmas. So what is Halloween about? It's about the harvest, right? You've got it in. You know that, I don't think you probably don't have to sing this song in school anymore, but we used to have to sing this song about everything is gathered in before the winter storms begin. It's an incredible line of something you have to do. You have to get the food in before the winter storms. Otherwise you're going to starve. But how joyful when you've done that. And then people can pause and they can celebrate. And it's those anchoring our lives. What are we trying to do? We're trying to have food through the winter. We're trying to have light through the winter. We get to Halloween, we just got to express love because, you know, when we amuse each other. When we get to Valentine's Day, we have love in a different kind of way. It's not spooky, we're not going into winter. It's like, it's not quite light yet, but it might get light. That is the soul that we are trying to express. And then we find on Main Street, find echoes of it. You can buy a pumpkin from these people, but they are giving you more than a pumpkin. They're anchoring you in the lattice work of your life. And if you can walk down Main Street and accept that gift, which is really a gift from your society, you will be healthier and stronger and more tuned in and more connected. That's the point of festivals. They're anchoring us to each other, and they're anchoring us to the earth and to the sky. And that's soul. Soul is having those channels. The channels up and down and into everything. Open. A rainbow. Every once in a while, you just see a rainbow over Main Street. And Christmas lights. This is 125th Street in Harlem, which just looks beautiful at Christmas. So, what's all that got to do with mental health? Getting what we need in the market economy. Market economy, we're not subsistence farmers. We got to go to a store and buy stuff. We got to go buy food. We got to go buy dental floss. We got to go buy paper. We got to go buy clothes. We got to go to the store. We have to communicate with each other because there's a lot of us. 300 million people in the United States of America and 7 billion around the world. We've got to talk to each other. That's a big problem in the world today. You may have noticed. Kill each other instead of talking to each other. But anyway, Main Streets are real good at communicating. We are helped to be mentally healthy if we feel a part of the whole because we recognize the symbols. All of you could recognize Christmas and Halloween and Valentine's Day through the symbols. I didn't have to say, Jeannie decorated her store for Christmas. You already knew that. You know all the symbols of Christmas. So part of this is about our culture, is symbolic talk. I give you a pink heart. It's a symbolic talk. I hang a million pink hearts in my store window. It's symbolic talk. But we feel included because we know. It's like when the teenagers invent a new phrase. My granddaughter does this to me all the time. And she's like, oh, Grandma, you don't need to know. But then I can't feel included because I don't know the word. I don't know the symbol. Or sometimes she'll say, okay, Grandma, I'll explain. That helps us feel part of it. We feel cared for by the larger whole because our place in the scheme of things is valued. This is a part of mental health of the nation that's violated constantly in the United States because we trash some places and we invest in others. So this is hugely problematic for the mental health of our society. But also, as we go there, and as we are part of this, as we go into a store, as we buy a magazine, as we send a card, we are helping to create this environment. Think of Twitter and Facebook and all those emoticons flying around are helping to create the symbolic language of the whole culture. This creates mental health. This is about connections. It's about being able to work things through with each other. It's about engagement. And mental health comes from feeling at ease in society. Able to take my place, do my job, connect to others easily, with flow. This is not, mental health is not the same as mental illness. Mental illness is a whole different kettle of fish. If we are creating mental health, what we are creating is that most people feel connected most of the time. And then, when some people get ill, some people get ill all the time, we can take care of them. So part of the reason to have a really good society that's inclusive, that's kind, that has great Main Streets, is so that most people stay well most of the time. Otherwise, you have too many people who are ill. You can't take care of them. So I just would like to leave you with this thought that Main Street is a dance, a very complicated dance, like May Day, like dancing around a maypole. Any of you ever dance around a maypole? It's very complicated. And you have to kind of get the ribbons wrapped, and people are going under and over and all around. And if you see really expert people do it, it's gorgeous. If you see people like me do it, it's a mess. But it's all about these very patterned dances in shared public spaces. That's what Main Streets are about. And they're extremely, extremely important. And just interesting to watch. So next time you're on Main Street or even out there in that little corridor, just watch what people do, where they sit, who they talk to, how they move through the space, what's posted on the wall. There's a lot to see and learn about. And it will help you understand your society and how to make it better. And that's it.
Questions? Plenty of time for questions.
Yeah.
Can you apply what you have discovered about this mainstream idea to like a hot spotter in healthcare? To identify the areas where we should implement the most resources we can. Like, so the place doesn't have a main street, that means maybe they need some help with resources. Because like the main street means that area has mental health, like they're doing really well. So can you use it to find areas that don't, so like if you use like what your map like you had before, I can see the areas that have these great main streets, and then all the areas that don't, could I say, you know, maybe they don't have the right resources, like they don't have a healthy culture, or there's something going on, so we could
Well,
use that, like,
it's a great idea, and there's one complication. And that is that if you're in a society that trashes a whole lot of people and privileges a whole lot of people, that makes everybody busy. There's that problem. So, but a lot of people in public health say that, well, let's just find the places where all the trouble is and go there. But the deeper part of the trouble is that we create the separation. So we have to work on the separation, and we have to put a bottom over the people who are having the hardest time. So two tasks. That makes sense though, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you think malls have taken on have become like a substitute for Main Street? I mean, probably a poor substitute. Do you think they've taken on some of those functions and forms?
Well, people can go to malls and see other people, and they can buy stuff. So there are a lot of things, a lot of places where you can, feel some of these characteristics. But malls are privately owned. They're highly, rigidly controlled. Right, the owners control what goes on. The Main Street is a public street, and you could see. You go to a good Main Street, you see all sorts of weird things, but that can't happen in mall. So just the way there's baseball behavior, and there's classroom behavior, and there's Main Street behavior, there's mall behavior. So mall behavior is different from Main Street. So, which is not to say malls are kind of useful, they have uses, but Main Streets aren't dead because Main Street behavior is a different class of behavior. That's my view.
I'm wondering particularly talking about the difference between the mall and Main Street, how much does it matter that Main Street space is in some ways customizable by all the different participants, that there's a way for people who go through Main Street to kind of leave a mark on it, as well as the people who own the shops or the streets, and it's kind of that participatory behavior, just marking the sidewalk, with that ability to customize the space.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of things that are different between malls and Main Streets, but that's certainly one, and one worth acknowledging. This issue of space having many compartments is an important one. I first studied this at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall. How many of you have been there? Ever been there? Or you've heard of that, right? So what was interesting, because the war was so bitterly disputed, when it was over, the people who had gone and fought the war really felt like they didn't quite know how to go home. And so they were kind of left in limbo for a long time. That was very bad. And then they decided to put up this memorial. This young woman who was a 23-year-old architecture student in Berlin made this this like really very abstract watercolor of her idea for a wall with all the names on it, that were 2 perpendicular sides. And so this wall was built with all the names on it, and everybody waited. And it was a real turning point for people in recovery from the war. People who had gone to fight the war, people who were against the war, everybody. It was a very, very powerful memorial, the most powerful memorial I've seen erected. And so the question is, why? What's going on there? Why does it work? And it really gets down to this issue of how the space is partitioned. When you go there, you should go there. It's really extraordinarily beautiful, but it's also just good to go and think about it. So you can go up to the wall and all the names are there, and people who are connected to one of the names make rubbings, or they just touch the name. And there has been a tradition of bringing things to the wall, and they have an archive of all the things that have been brought to the wall. So people will leave letters, people will leave flowers at the wall. All kinds of things, teddy bears. So on any given day when you go there, you'll see all the gifts, which are right at the wall. But people who are not connected, there's a path about 2 feet from the wall that you can walk through. And most people walk through at a pretty steady pace. So they come, they walk through, and they leave. And that's a different thing. But it turns out there's a third set of people. And the third set of people is kind of a little further away from the wall, but they stand and watch. And in a way, they're almost the caretakers of the space. They have all different kinds of relationships to the space, like why they want to stand and watch. Varies widely. But they are not necessarily either the direct mourners or the tourists. They're the people who said, I need to be here looking after this. So each of those groups more or less is in a separate space by the Vietnam Veterans War. So it's just one wall that people have these different relationships to. So the partition of space for different activities is very important and something we do all the time. And malls only allow mall-approved behavior, so you can't partition space. And Main Streets belong to us, so we can partition space. Just as the Vietnam Veterans Memorial belongs to us, so we can bring teddy bears there. So I think the partition space is a way that we create the space, and it's part of what gives it soul. If you want to write in chalk on Main Street, you can. Imagine trying to write in chalk on the wall. You can do it. All right, so here's the big question. Did any of this make sense to you? You would buy it. I mean, you would say, okay, yeah, I've seen it. What did you like most? You're like, wait, I saw that. That makes more sense.
The soul part of it, you know, was like how you treat the pumpkin pad, like the pumpkin garden house and stuff. When I walk on certain main streets, then like that's what I see, like that you have that feeling.
That's cool.
I always thought Main Streets were about shopping and just that, but the way you put it, it really makes sense that we're there for the people. People attract people, we just want to be together. Love it.
The idea of the box made sense to me, just that it's a structure that we're in.
I'm glad.
I was going to say, my sister lives in Teaneck. Whenever I go up to that area, Teaneck, Englewood, and all of that, I know I feel a certain thing. I never thought about it before, but all those little shops and everything that you see, I hadn't thought about it in the context that you put it in. But now it makes more sense to me. It's like I understand more now what I felt, but without understanding the context as well.
You didn't know you weren't supposed to be in the store.
I also appreciate the point about the soulfulness of this, and I think the word used was it's ephemeral. And because it's ephemeral, it can be difficult sometimes to put words to exactly what it is. But you're talking about it actually making me think of cyberspace and how difficult it can be for cyberspace to do the same things that Main Street can do. Precisely because a lot of what happens in cyber, I mean, some of it may be ephemeral, but it seems like an awful lot of it isn't. Right? You stare at a computer screen or at some kind of screen, and you see words, images that are fixed, and that you can, in some sense, customize, but you can certainly sort of take them with you anyway and access them in particular ways. And that's not true of soul, at least in the way in which I take you to be talking about it. Because one of the questions I think I was going to ask is about whether or not cyberspace can do some of the things that Main Street can do. My intuition tells me it can't, but I could be wrong.
Well, I mean, if you think about it the way the ecological psychologists do, it's the idea that in each of these little ecologies, there are rules about how we behave. So the way this room is set up, rigid desks bolted to the floor and risers, it can only be classroom. We can't say, oh, there's not a lot of us, let's make a circle. So we get classroom behavior. Everybody's very politely listening to me talk, and I'm talking, and we're all doing what we're supposed to be doing. So cyberspace has cyberspace behavior. And it's not Main Street behavior. So it's not to say that one becomes to substitute. Malls don't substitute for Main Streets. Cyberspace doesn't substitute for Main Streets. Main Streets are Main Streets. And it's understanding that the complexity of that ecological system. And then we begin to say, okay, I see it. I see how it can work for our society. But we keep adding new systems, so the point is not to say this one is going to kill that one, but how are they complementary? How are they different? They're never going to be identical because they're formed different.
So you have many examples of like main streets where it was like very like gentrified. You had examples of like the one in Newark where like there was no funding, it was just like dead. Did you like over the years of you doing this, have you seen like any like stark effects of like a Main Street that was more like kind of like old-timey like you had and then turning more gentrified?
Yeah.
Have you seen anything?
Yeah, Newark Avenue, not on the Indian side, but on the downtown side, is very old-timey and is now gentrified. So, where they would have had a, sort of dollar store, now they have a pet daycare, which is past brunch. If you had a rating scale of gentrification, pet daycare, there's brunch, there's cupcakes, and pet daycare. You could probably rank these, right? Newark Avenue, New Jersey City, just for like really intense stores. I mean, there are many others, but that's an intense one. And it's all that stuff about like the signage, like what is the store used for? I also saw that in Hoboken. I lived in Hoboken for a long time, and there was this old store, Cusselec shoe store, and I don't think the guy at Cusselec had sold a pair of shoes in 20 years. Yeah, but his store was there, his shoes were there, he was there. And then one day he died and they cleaned it out and it became, David Shishi food. So it's the, it's sort of, if errors have signs, then as we move as race and class are shifting in our society, there are new signs. Also, the style of the signs changing. So signs are worth taking photographs of. Just see what happens in your lifetime to the signs. It'll be interesting. I love the signs, because they used to paint signs on buildings that you can see that are dated. I saw a great one today. I was by Chambers Street. It was beautiful. Anyway, the signs are cool, and it's part of what changes are the signs. And the signs tell you who's supposed to be there and who's not. And it's also like these things like people spend more on pet daycare than other people can afford for childcare. So that gets to this problem of, what do we do about structure so that everybody can help? That in any rational, I mean, I want everybody, dogs to have a nice life. But there's no rational universe in which children should have a worse life than dogs. That doesn't make any sense. So what do we do about that? I'm not trying to say I have an answer. When you see pet daycares, thank you so much for your comments and feedback. I really appreciate it. This is actually one of the very first presentations I've ever given from this data. And you're just a lovely audience and very generous with your thoughts in return. So thank you so much.